Hello and welcome to a special edition of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Welcome to this special Thanksgiving week. Yours truly, Bryan Weigel, sitting in the host chair, taking up a pretty big seat here tonight, filling in for the big guy, Nick Superling. Hope you're having fun watching those Bengals, Nicholas, and talking about poor Joey B. Yeah, I'll tell you what, we got to kick him off because only pain follows him. So glad to be here with y'all. I'm joined by my twin, my partner in crime, Brad Weigel. How you doing, buddy?
All I can say is thank God I don't have to do player ratings for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well,
that O-line would have zeros, baby. It's horrible.
You could just copy whatever like Chris Collinsworth, his son's company is, so you'd have it probably a little easier. We are also. Oh, that's all right. We're joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Ken Hoetker this evening. He is the main man when it comes to roster budgets. How are we doing, Ken?
I'm doing pretty good. Best looking brunette on the show tonight. Also the worst looking. So
definitely the oldest.
Definitely the oldest. That is correct. I will own up to that. So yeah, it's good to be on again. This seems to be too frequent for me anymore.
Well, when we have to fix problems, we go to the man who knows how the money flows and how to bring in players and make the most out of our cap space, or, improvises as best we can. So, guys, we are glad to be back. We are kind of going to be doing shows every so often during this off season. We don't know how it's going to go yet. There's reports that the season was going to start in May. Now it's back to March, and with COVID on the uptick, you never know how it's going to be. So we'll be here trying to kind of make the best of what we can. So if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat this evening. This is kind of how it's going to go this evening. We are going to talk a little bit about kind of our off-season calendar. We're going to go into kind of a breakdown of the roster budget, how we think the team's going to need to be built with some rules changes perhaps. Then maybe kind of step into the roles of GM for the day. And, what would you do? What would we do? Post your thoughts in the chat. And then we have some listener questions to kind of fill out the episode. Don't know if this is going to go the full hour, but, if you have questions, please put them out there. And we'd love to talk a little bit of FC Cincinnati this week. So, boys, let's dive into it. I guess, first off, what do y'all think about the rumor coming out here with Kendall Waston going to Chicago? Ken, good move, bad move for him? Good move, bad move for them?
Happy for him if that's the case. I don't know if I just don't know if that's the system that he fits into again. So they seem to want to build out of the back a little bit too. So it wasn't really the team I was looking at maybe for him to go to, but it could work out. I honestly thought he might go to Austin, to be honest, just as somebody to build off of again. But I'm not, again, not so sure that Chicago's his spot either.
Well, it's definitely.
I didn't know if you're going to ask me this or not. Subs typically does, but you're filling into his shoes. You're learning. It's all right. No matter wherever Kendall goes, I'm going to be a fan of Kendall Waston. So, he it sucks, and I'm not sure. It's going to be on him to see if he can be that impactful best 11 player that he was about 4 or 5 years ago. But if you're Chicago, you're still a team at rebuilding. You get a couple more pieces around, a little more direction. He would be a good asset to have, in the locker room and on that back line where you're just not going to mess with us. And I just think here there were just not enough pieces around him for him to be successful. He needs to have a midfield that needs to be on the ball. Looks like they're going to be spending some young assets on some talent. So we'll see what he can do. I wish him the best of luck. But I still think there's some good days ahead for him.
All right, some more FC Cincinnati news. It's reported Tom Bogert and then later by Laura Fowler that contrary to some earlier reports, Joe Zhao and Caleb Stanko will be re-signing with FC Cincinnati. So pretty excited to have them back in the fold. Ken, what do you make of Caleb and Joe?
I think, for Caleb, I think it was sort of a necessary signing in the aspect of holding a domestic. spot. We need to fill some of that up, and I think his ability to be, I almost want to call him a closer, a guy that come in late in the game. If we're up, tied, trying to get a point, he's going to be physical, willing to take some fouls. So I think it's a smart move from that end. Other than that, he needs to show a little bit more to truly be an impactful senior roster player to me. But I think his domestic status helped him out immensely here. For Joe Zhao, we had to get him. He's a guy who I think might have some flexibility. Again, as a wing back, as a winger, he might have some long-term play in other positions, but a guy who can get up the field needs to work on his crosses. But I think he's a solid signing. All of this is dependent upon what we signed him for too, which is still unknown. So, I mean, obviously, when I say it's a solid signing, I have these guys, somewhere in that $200,000 to $300,000 range, roughly. So, I think they can be worth that. So that's it.
Bradley, I know we're gonna talk about this in a little bit. But there's going to be a theme of this offseason. No matter what Gerard or the FO say, we literally have 2 to 3 international spots. And we have roughly 10 openings. So we need to prioritize domestic talent that can play on the field and actually contribute. So I think it's very smart for a player like Zhao, who he's got some flexibility, whether that's a right back or a right wing. I actually tend to think if he wants to have a long-term move and maybe get back into the national team, it actually is probably going to be in that backup right back role. And then with Stenko, I think they're going to have to negotiate that wage down. I think his roster hit was something like $350,000. I would assume I think Ken just said it's going to be maybe more in that 200 range. But again, it's a guy who's a domestic who can play in the midfield. We're not going to want him to play every single week. But if we need to put him in a match here or there, it will be more than enough. So I think with this team, domestic talent is going to be the theme of the offseason. How can we retain it, and how can we get more of it?
Well, I think you have Kamahela Makocho and Harrison Dunanan that'll start over Caleb. But Caleb's been in the squad for now. This will be his 3rd season in Cincinnati. He knows the club. He knows the setup. He knows how Jaap Stam wants to play. And I mean, he must be doing something right, because he played quite a bit under Jaap Stam, of course, before Kamahela Makocho came in. He was featuring a lot more, but I think there is something to be said there about he's a professional, and he's a great backup versus having to go to some of these younger guys that we had pitched out there. So I'm glad to see them. And of course, Joe Zhao, if not the MVP, probably the second best player on the squad this year. And I think with more fitness, more training, learning the game, how Stam wants to play, I think he'll be, the sky's the limit still, whether it's the right wing or the right fullback. So pretty excited about those 2 moves reported by Tom Bogert.
I just want to jump in real quick, though.
Sure.
I love that you guys both said right back, just because I was adamant about him, and I say adamant. I think he has a spot. I do think that's his long-term play as a soccer player. Just unless he develops his offensive prowess in the final third a lot better, long-term play, it's easier to play defense. And I'm glad that you guys just bring that up, because I think if he does develop into that, he's a steal. Mm-hmm. He is an absolute steal for us, because the way we want to play, getting wide, having a wing back or a right back that can get forward and potentially deliver that ball correctly, he's a steal.
I mean, Jaap Stam said it in his postseason town hall. He wants to create width. He needs pace. And, I think FC Cincinnati can do a lot better on the wing than Joe Zhao personally. Okay. I do. I think that, that's a spot where you're going to either have a DP or a TAM there long term. And so for Joe Zhao to be on the field and get minutes and contribute, I think he does a lot better with everything in front of him at that right back role. It's going to be, there's going to be a lot of training that needs to happen there, but you're seeing more and more of that position become an attacking threat. Both wingbacks in soccer in general, whether it's the EPL, whether it's MLS, you get width, and you get players in the attack from those fullback and wingback spots, and that's what allows teams to succeed. And I'm on board that bandwagon. I wouldn't be like upset if he was our starting right back first week next year.
All right. Well, that's the majority of the soccer news we have right now for FC Cincinnati. Not too much going on with the holidays, with COVID, with the playoffs going on. This is pretty much a dead period unless you're Chicago Fire signing 18, 20-year-olds from Ecuador. So good for them. Gerard, I believe Gerard Nijkamp is back in Holland with his family right now. I think Laurel mentioned that in the story. So good for him. Take some time off. Spend some time with your family. He's gone through the ringer over the past 12 months here in Cincinnati. So guys, we're finally turning the page, flipping the script from 2020. It's like, get the heck out of here and let's move forward. Starting the process of moving forward is evaluating the schedule, what we have going on in the next month. We have a lot going on. We're pretty used to this with expansion, and then last year trying to rebuild the roster. So basically between now and the second week of December, you're deciding your options, your offers to your, I guess, free agents, basically trying to lock up T-Tone and Nick Hagland, and probably trying to work something out for Andrew Gutman in that time frame. And then of course MLS Cup, and then the pretty much the fun part of the offseason begins on the 13th of December. You have a half day trade window, followed by a roster blackout, then the expansion draft. Of course, FC Cincinnati is safe from the expansion draft this year because we had, who do we have taken last year? Alvis Powell, is that right?
Sounds about right.
Alvis Powell from Miami, I think that's right. Taken in that draft. So we are safe this year. No FC Cincinnati going to Austin, which, the pickings would have been slim anyway. Then kind of where we start fitting in is the 16th. We have the waiver draft for FC Cincinnati. Actually, we're going to be picking first, not 26th. That's where we got Harris Medunanen. You also have the free agency. Free agency is going to open, so FC Cincinnati will be able to go out and hopefully get some players, whether it's some veterans, that could be your domestics, guys who have been around the league, and these are type of players that you saw Nashville go out and get last year to kind of shore up their roster. It's a crazy league, and they went out and did some good things with that. Of course, you have the waiver drafts, the waiver draft and the reentry process, which are guys who didn't pick up waivers. The reentry process, the first round is basically guys who, if you select a player in this stage, you have to basically pay them what they did last year. Or if you get them in the second stage of the reentry round in the 22nd of December, you can negotiate a lower wage bill. So guys, looking at all these different things, of course, I didn't have the college draft on here. I don't know when that's exactly going yet. What do you think of these mechanisms are the most important for us in this offseason schedule?
Well, do we want to set the groundwork of what we're looking to do first this offseason?
Well, whatever you think, man.
Okay. Okay. So if you're me sitting here right now, November 23rd, if you include Zhao and Stanko, FC Cincinnati has 17 players under contract. Okay, now we're in discussions with Gutman, Teton, and Hagland. Okay, so that's 20. So we have 30 spots to fill. Now, of that, 29 and 30 are homegrowns, which are already filled by Zico Bailey, and Sunderland is the keeper. So we need to find really about 10 players that are going to be able to contribute for FC Cincinnati this upcoming season. And like I said before, we have 2 to 3 maybe international spots pre-trade. So we just can't go out into the international market and fill all these spots. So if you're looking at the roster right now, and I'm going through and seeing what spots are available, I'm seeing 7 open senior spots. Okay. I'm seeing a couple supplemental spots and a couple reserve spots. Of that, right now, I think FC Cincinnati needs 5 starters. We need a DP10, center back, right back, left back, and then we're going to talk about this. I guess we can talk about the U22 rule. that's going to be coming up. But we've got another open senior spot. So we have 7 senior spots to fill this offseason. Or if we want to leave maybe 1 or 2 for the summer, that's fine. But we've got several big holes to fill. So how are we going to fill those? And we're not going to be able to fill those this offseason through just signing guys from overseas. And we don't have the allocation spots because we've traded that to LAFC next year. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to that's what Gerard's goal is.
Well, I agree, you know, and when Brian was asking how are we going to utilize these spots, just from me looking at it and the waiver draft, I only see us being able to get 1, maybe 2 players. I think you can go through 2 rounds. And in fact, I know you can go as many rounds as you want. I know, is it C Rank on YouTube was saying, you know, why are we looking at keeping Teton? And I sit there and go, maybe we pick up a goalkeeper, and I'm not saying in round 1, but a domestic goalkeeper. Usually those are available through this mechanism at some level, and grab that from a waiver spot. From the re-entry, I think that's how we got Saad Abdul Salam last year. So I think that's actually the point in time where you sit there and go, I want to renegotiate some of these higher contract players that are out there and available down into that supplemental area. And I think we have 2 spots available. We could probably only get 1 because with the draft that we're talking about, I would assume we're going to go for a generation Adidas player. It's the smartest way to go. So you don't have to put them on any kind of a senior roster spot for 3 years. So
Brian, pull that list back up for me if you can. Okay. So out of this, what do I see? I see the expansion draft, which we're not, you know, we're not going to be in. Maybe we create a trade there. I see the waiver draft and I see the reentry process. What this screams to me is depth. So if Gerard is going to be building his offseason plan, I think he needs to start looking at these mechanisms and say, I can get players for free for the most part without acquisition costs, or I can even trade these assets to get more tam. Thank you, ma'am. So, you know, for me, waiver draft, first of all, December 16th. You know, last year you had Harris Medellin in, a guy who'd had a nice year this year at left back, Danilo Acosto, and then you know a guy like Alex Rodan who ended up just resigning back with Seattle. There's some talent there, and we got lucky and we got a Medellin in who was a starter this past season. But I think, you know what, that's going to be your depth pieces. And then reentry draft, you saw guys like Mikey Ambrose, Saad Abdul Salam, Juan Agudelo, and Eric Miller. Those 4 guys, I think, were the most part the guys taken in the reentry draft. Well, if you look at that roster, you actually do have 3 semi-starters with Mikey Ambrose, Eric Miller, and then Swagudelo down in Miami. You know, so if I am Gerard Nijkamp, I'm looking to use these spots to fill depth pieces. You know what? Right now we don't have any left backs if we don't bring back Gutman.
Yep.
Maybe you get Gutman there. I love you. Or excuse me, you get a player that could be like a swap for Gutman. Whatever.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. As far as depth at left back, I don't think we need a right back. I mean, and when I say don't need, I think we got Zico and Zhao as potential like backups if we find a real, you know, the right back we want. So from a depth perspective, I don't think, I think we're fine at that position. But a left back, if we don't bring back Gutman, we don't even have a starter there. So it's a prime position to get.
And we'll get into that here. But like the other one, how can we, out of those 2, you know, I'm thinking maybe a depth piece on maybe a left back, maybe a wing, maybe a central midfield, cheap something. You get a plug and play player at the drop of a hat, like maybe like an AJ De La Garza or something. He's probably a free agent, whatnot, but you get some depth pieces. Maybe you get like you said, I love the idea of getting a backup keeper. Are we going to bring TT back he's got to be at a reduced rate? Are we comfortable going with a year with TT, Lunt, and maybe Sunderland, maybe a college free agent, or do we get maybe a tried and true second keeper who's probably a third keeper for a year because we're not bringing Spencer Ritchie because Spencer Ritchie wants to go out and be a starter somewhere, whether that's USL, whether that's MLS, whatnot. So I think those pieces are going to be the groundwork that Gerard and Camp has to go, okay, I need to get some guys here. Domestic, has to be domestic, that I know I find my next Caleb Stanko. I find maybe my next Joe Zhao or somebody in this process where domestic can come off the bench and go.
Well, let's hit on the actual roster that we have right now. I think we mentioned it earlier. We got 2 keepers on the roster right now with Ben Lunt and Beckham Sunderland. Don't know what Sunderland's going to be. I assume he'll be spot 29 or 30. Saad Abdul Salam, Zico Bailey, Tom Pedersen, Mikkel Vanderwerth as your defenders. And then you have potential Andrew Gutman there. Your midfield's pretty set. I mean, you might have 1 or 2, maybe one addition in there. Frankie Amaya, Alvaro Barrial, Alan Cruz, Yu Yakubo, Harris Mdunin, Kamahelo Makocho, and Caleb Stanko. I think your addition there would probably be the 10. And then your forwards, Franco Kovacic, Jurgen Locadia, and Brandon Vasquez, along with Joe Zhao, depending where he fits in. So there's definitely some room and some movement, I think, in that forwards and that defenders camp. And of course, I think you need to lock in a starter for your keepers. But feeling pretty good on that midfield. Now, Ken and Brad, we've talked a little bit about international spots and how we get 8. Right now, if you look on MLSsoccer.com, we're fully filled. Kubo, Makocho, Madunin, Kovacevic, Pedersen, Locadia, Barriel, Vanderwerth. Speaking of Vanderwerth, apparently he's on the inside track for a green card. Madunin seems to be on the inside track for a green card. Ben Lunt, who's the keeper, I believe he's getting married, so he'll qualify for domestic status. So, right now we're looking at maybe 2 open international spots, maybe 3. Is that kind of where you guys are thinking?
I thought I had potentially 3.
Oh, but 2 to 3. It depends on if Kovacevic is coming back or not.
Mm-hmm. And I think you guys have, speaking off air, we're unsure where he's fitting in. You keep hearing the terminology used by Nijkamp and Stam in the press conferences saying, he'll be with us most likely through preseason, and we'll see what happens there if he's worth using that international spot. Because right now for FC Cincinnati, that's gold, and I'd love to see if we can bring in a 9th spot. Trade for maybe the waiver reentry or something else. Getting into that. So guys, let's talk about. You guys want to talk about the money right now and kind of how we're fitting in this? I was kind of going to let you guys drive the train on the roster budget build for this upcoming season.
Well, let's just talk about the money from how it's going to work next year, which a DP is going to be $650,000 charge on this. So if you buy a $10 million DP, he only costs the cap $650,000. I'm just using these rough numbers over there. But one of the new mechanism that everybody's concerned about, and we don't know, we're not 100% sure, is this new U22 rule that they're putting in or supposedly implementing, which there's going to be some sort of flat fee. And I think Brad posted that it's going to be between $150,000 to $250,000 for a young, an under 22. And there's 3 spots available. Is that correct, Brad?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, it's the Athletic reported between 150 and 200K.
So the point is you can sign these U22 guys and get a huge reduction in cost to the team. So if any rule change is going to help FCC out, it's going to be that one to allow us some flexibility. So I just wanted to point out those 2, the GAM and the TAM. I don't want to get into that. That gets everybody confused. But the new cap is like $5.2 million. So as far as salary cap hit, what counts against you, you have to stay under 5.2 million, I think, next year. So, but I just wanted to point out the DP cost and the U22 rule as a baseline for us to talk about money and what impacts that has on the roster.
Right. So we'll be showing you guys a couple different charts tonight. I think Brad had some ideas, Kent had some ideas, and then the chart that you're seeing on the screen right now can be found at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com on the budget tracker.
So put up the main, or I think it's already up, the main budget tracker you got there. Okay, so if you scroll down a little bit, you see we've got 6, maybe 7, because you include on this chart Franko Kovacevic. Okay, so you have potentially 7 open spots. So when you're looking at this roster and you're Gerard Nijkamp, you go, how do I make this team better? And I think we can all admit last year, spots 1 through 6, really our top 3 DPs and our top TAM players, outside of Harris Medellin, were trash. Really, they were just terrible this past year. So how can I get contributions from those guys? So I think if you're establishing some offseason goals and you're Gerard Nijkamp, okay, priority 1, what's priority number 1, Ken? What's your priority number 1?
You mean for the
offseason? What's the number 1 priority Gerard Nijkamp's got this offseason?
a 10.
A number 10. Thank you.
Yep.
A number 10. Okay. So if we're looking at this roster right now, we've got 3 DPs. So we're going to have to buy down a TAM player. We're probably talking about Alan Cruz here to get a DP. So, honestly, if you're looking at year over year, you fill in, you put down Cruz into the Sim de Jong spot, and you bring in a new number, a 10 designated player. But we're thinking about this. How are you going to get more contributions from the squad? So you said number 2, you brought it up, that past one. I think his number 2 goal is that U22 rule. How can I use that new U22 rule, which luckily for FC Cincinnati is going to help us catch up, hopefully, to some of the other teams, because I think this offseason, other teams might be getting rid of a couple domestic players and bringing them in with this U22 rule. So then that's going to basically fill out our international spots. So then goal number 3 for Gerard is, how can I maximize my allocation money? And I think this is going to be the biggest thing of this offseason, is how can Gerard Nijkamp store up as much GAM, especially to trade to get other players in here, impact players in here. I'm talking to Iko Para. I'm talking to Walker Zimmerman. I'm talking players in this league of that caliber. How can he get those guys in here this season to not only contribute to start, but look at Walker Zimmerman was a best 11 center back. He was the defender of the year in Major League Soccer this year, and he came over from LAFC to Nashville.
So what you're saying there, just to clarify a little bit, is storing allocation money to trade within the league, not to go out and get outside players trading within the league. I think you took your headphones off there for a second.
Totally. No, man, I'm in off-season shape right now, off-season form. Totally pulled the mic cable out of the headset, so I didn't hear you there, fella.
No, just clarifying that your allocation you're saying is to be used within the league.
Yes. So you're going to trade within the league to get domestic players, because honestly, I think I mentioned it earlier at the top of the show. Honestly, FC Cincinnati, where we were sitting, we would have had the second allocation spot, so we could have gone out. Maybe a guy like Tyler Boyd would have came available. Julian Green, a guy who's
Boyd's
overseas,
not on the allocation list.
I'm just saying, Ken. Saying, making a point. Okay, which that's shocking to me. But the point being, we had to send that to LAFC this coming season, because we didn't come in the where we were last, our first season in Major League Soccer. So you know what? There was a stipulation in the contract. It was bottom 5 protected. So they get our 2021 pick. So honestly, some of those players that are overseas right now, the domestic players that I'm hearing circulated out there, they're not realistic gets right now. They just aren't. It would take way too much. There's way too many teams ahead of us that want to trade for those. Honestly, right now at that point, that's not a realistic to get a player like that. So we're gonna have to look at in the league domestic players.
Do you think we're going to see a substantial shift, guys, in the acquisitions this year, where you saw a lot of international players, where we're going to be basically focusing on the MLS player with the occasional number 10 coming in outside the league? Personal opinion? because
Yeah.
it showed with so here's my question I've been having, and this is the difference between host and sitting in your guys' chairs. I almost want Gerard to stay the course and do what he thinks is right and go out and get those international players if he truly thinks those guys are better players. I know MLS is a weird league, but I don't want to just go out and get domestic players just to right the ship. I want to get into third, fourth gear here, start revving up that engine to start getting us in the right direction to compete, not just survive.
Well, I think the landscape's definitely going to change with this U22 rule. I mean, we're going to talk about this probably for the next year, to be honest, because we don't know the impact of it and how it's going to, how it's going to play out. But one thing's for sure, and the mentality of the league and American players, just to be clear, is if you're U22 and you're extremely good, you're going to Europe. You're not hanging out here in America. So that means this U22 rule is going to be for internationals. And where are we going to get those internationals from? More than likely, it's going to be from South America. It's going to be the South American up to the U.S. and over to Europe. That's the planned play. So I think what's going to be key is how do these international, how do all these international spots get played out? Are they going to be traded? Is Gerard going to be able to get 9 spots, 10 international spots to do this? Or is everybody going to hold tight, hold their cards close to their vest and say, I'm keeping all 8 of these because I can go get that Paraguayan, that Uruguayan, that Argentine and young Brazilian, and hold on to it. I think it's going to be harder to acquire those spots, is my point. And that's how I think the landscape's going to change drastically.
Is it Gerard staying the course and going for international players, or is it him learning and evolving over years, our general manager in Major League Soccer, learning the intricacies of this league to now realize what he has to do to make this team succeed? The way this league is set up, you have to have domestic players who can contribute, and we don't have them right now. So you've got to go out and get them. One of the ways you do basically the main vehicle of doing that is to trade allocation money. So he's got to stock it up. That's why I don't mind signing Hagelund, signing Stanko, signing TT if he's got a green card. That way you've got allocation money without using international spots. Then you can go out and get more domestic players.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And then what? Maybe Matt Rock I literally just saw it on Twitter and I was about ready to say it. And then maybe you got your pipeline coming of academy players like Beckham, Sunderland, and all those. So, but for now, for the next season or two, you've got to maximize your domestic talent. You got to maximize your return on investment from your allocation money, which we've just done terribly the first 2 years.
But I think again, you're correct. Gerard has to get better at that. But I also think his way of thinking, at least the past year and a half that he's been here, is let's get green cards. And I don't think that's the long-term way of working this system that'll help us out. So I agree that he needs to find that. But I think it's going to be harder and harder to find that Walker Zimmerman, which, just to be clear, is American domestics defensive players used to be like, a dime a dozen, and I'm using that term, very loosely, but easy to find. Now everybody's recognizing the value that they bring, and they become overvalued a little bit. And again, you're saying he's got to stock up that GAM, but I'm wondering what's going to be available. That's the hard part.
Brian, go to my roster budget page, or unless you want to talk about something.
Well, real quick, Matt Rock had brought up I think he also had something on Twitter about academy players, and we have this young gentleman right here, Agnes Bohi. I probably butchered that, but this is a gentleman who's 16, about to be 17 here in a couple days, who featured last year for Philadelphia Union 2. I think he had 20 appearances in the USL Championship, scoring 2 goals and 3 assists. As a 16-year-old, and now we have him. Props Larry Sunderland. Props whoever is out there signing these guys. So that's some great news. for FC Cincinnati land. All right, Brad, you said you wanted me to bring up what now?
I do. Bring up my roster page.
All right, give me 1 second here.
Okay, so let's go into GM for the day mode.
All right, give me 1
Ken,
second.
you on board with me? I think you're muted. There you go.
Sure.
All right. Brian's figuring
Coming
it
up.
out.
It's
Okay.
coming up. Hold on.
It's okay. All right. So
And zoom in a little bit when you go do that.
right, yeah,
Oh,
he can do
geez,
the whole.
you
He can do the whole page.
prima
He can do the whole
donnas.
page. It's okay. When you take time, you create these Excel spreadsheets. You got a little credence. It's okay. So getting into GM for the day. Okay, so if I'm GM for the day, if Brad Weigel, general manager, or assistant to the general manager, assistant to the general manager. All right, so let's take a look at this roster right now. How can we get impact players? So if you've got the sheet right now, I think we've all tend to have agreed FC Cincinnati is going to bring in one designated player this offseason, right?
Yep.
So if that's going to be the case, we're going to buy down Alan Cruz, so he's going to become a TAM player. But all of a sudden, we can create a GAM number 10, go out and get him on the designated player circuit. But if you guys look at this roster here, we've got some large cap hits, especially on the TAM front, to get some impact players. Michael Vanderwerf, TAM. Harris Medunin, TAM. So honestly, if you think about it, we've got enough TAM for maybe one additional TAM player, maybe two, more than likely probably one off the bat. So if I'm Gerard Nightcamp, I'm going out and I'm getting a TAM center back. And honestly, if I'm going to use the CAM number 10 DP, I'm getting rid of Kovacevic. I'm getting two U22 players, at least for the time being. Maybe you terminate the loan later of Kovacevic and you get a U22 player then. That I could see that happening. But all of a sudden, we've got to fill 1, 2, 3 to 4 major senior roster spots. Okay, so if you look at my roster here, I have stocked up as much GAM as possible. I see a scenario where I'm just looking at budget charges, the salary charge portion of this, okay? I'm talking about FC Cincinnati going out and getting a domestic TAM, possibly center back, and then 2 starting fullbacks somehow. And those charges are going to be somewhere in the range of $500,000. Okay, so if we look at that, we're going to go out and get 3 starters on the back line, probably domestic, maybe a U22, sprinkle them in there or whatnot. And then you can go out and do something else with those positions. But if you think about it, if we do that, if we get a number 10 DP, we get 2 U22 players, I throw in a waiver draft pick for depth like an Alex Roldan, something like that. We need to get 3 starters. Gerard Nightcamp, in my view, has roughly, if he maximizes his salary budget, $1.3 million in GAM to go out and use that as tradable assets to go get impact players this offseason. Now, that's me saying the U22s are $150,000. Maybe it's a little bit more. So we do a ballpark somewhere between $1 million to $1.3 million in GAM, and then an additional $400,000 in TAM. Gerard's going to have those assets to go out there and get starters. So how is he going to do that? Is it going to be, could he maybe justify in stealing one of those off the free agency pile? So all of a sudden he's got more GAM, so he can go out and get an impact player, the next Ikapara, maybe a Justin Glad, maybe a Tim Parker, maybe something like that. I'm not saying
Justin
those
Glad.
specific players because I don't think Tim Parker can pass like we need. But that's how this season FC Cincinnati's been given a couple wild cards in those U22 spots that we haven't had the past couple of years. Now, other teams are going to get those as well, but if you're a rebuilding team and you need a get out of jail free card on excuse my Monopoly reference there, they're going to have to use those. They are going to have to use those. In an ideal world, maybe you don't jam pack your team full of 3 U22s at once, but if FC Cincinnati is going to want to compete this year, they're going to have to take advantage of those U22 spots because Barriel's going to take one probably. So what are we going to do with those other 2? Maybe Kovacevic kind of occupies that spot for a year and maybe a half season till they can go out and get somebody else in the summer. But I think that's how FC Cincinnati does have a little bit of leeway, a little bit of room that we maybe didn't think was there to go out and get some real pieces.
Ken, would you like me to bring up yours?
Yeah, you can bring it up. I mean, I think 90% of us are all aligned in most of the way the team should be built. The way I looked at it, and I think if I'm GM, besides getting a DP10, the first thing I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to bring Gutman back, and I'm trying to bring him back on a loan. That's what I want to. I would play that card. He can't go anywhere else in MLS without somebody else acquiring our rights, and getting him on a loan. I think by not acquiring him, we can keep him off of the senior roster. So I think that helps a little bit, and we're not tied down. We have a left back. I'm not saying he's the greatest left back, but we have a left back. Again, DP10 is number one. I get a TAM center back. I agree with Brad. Finding that domestic TAM center back is number 2 on my list. A right back is number 3 on my list. At that point, but that's assuming we get Gutman, and I look at getting a TAM right back, and it could be and I say TAM. Let's just say a 600,000. It could be a 600, 700,000 player. It could be a U22, which means it's a less hit, a smaller hit, and opens up the door for Gerard Nijkamp to maybe go for that winger. And again, you brought up Tyler Boyd. I know he's a domestic. He might be worth the DP spot or a max TAM kind of player. I'm not 100% sure. Brad's over there shaking his head. I'm not. I'm just saying the game gets played sort of the position we're in, and our international spot being all gone. That's a big problem at this point. So I'm just that's the way I look at it. And again, Boyd's not necessarily the solution. If we do go get a DP winger, I think Franco Kovacic is gone because we need that international Kovacic.
Come on, Boston.
I'm right there online with Boston in these names. I don't. I can't.
So I think if we break down position group.
Hold on one second, Brad. So speaking, a couple of questions in here. Frankie Maya is still will be on his last year of his Generation Adidas contract. So he's on the supplemental roster. So he will not count towards the cap. And then hopefully a draft pick that we will get will be Generation Adidas or supplemental roster spots. So we're trying to keep those, roster additions off the top 20 senior roster spots. So if you're used to our Slack page and like some of y'all eyes are glazing over here, that's like, this is the stuff Ken and I just do on our Slack page and all the time. And like, Boston and Rob are like, come on guys, let's talk about something else. So I guess Brad
and I just go nuts.
Yeah. My question is to you two. And I think this is really what a lot of people are asking is we've seen a lot of speculation out there about new DPs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're seeing. And both you guys said, okay, DP 10, like get it on the books, let's go. But you didn't say a second DP.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question to you two is how tricky will it to get a second DP this winter window? Is it possible, or do we maybe go with what we have now? And then in the summer, you get a new third DP, quote unquote, third DP in on a, reduced.
Come on, host,
budget.
don't steal our talking points.
He's a trip. I'm so happy I don't have to hang out with you for Thanksgiving this year.
I'm gonna jump in.
No. He said my name first.
Oh my God!
He said my name first.
I don't think I did.
Yes, he did. He said Brad and then Yetter, whatever. Ken. It's not possible. Ken Hoetker, it is not possible for FC Cincinnati to bring in a third DP this window, and unlikely this season, another DP. So you're talking about buying Kubo down, I don't think it's personally possible if FC Cincinnati wants to succeed this year because, in my viewpoint, Ken, which I've been making the case tonight, whether eloquently, whether or not,
Drunkenly.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Weller. He's not as sharp as Mr. Bullet, Ken. I've heard that. Is that what I've heard? Okay. So,
Mute him.
yes, it is not possible for this team, the way they've set this up, with allocation money by spending too much on Van der Werf and spending too much on Medellin, thank you, that they're not going to be able to bring in another DP outside of the number 10. Mark it down. Tell me why I'm wrong, Ken Hoetker.
I'm not. You're wrong.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
They can do it.
These people need hope, Ken. Joe Burrow lost his leg.
They can do it. However, Mr. Demand Better here, you start doing the math and it does get a little bit tight. And actually, the math doesn't concern me as far as like them being able to do it. It's the risk. And if they go out and sign 2 brand new DPs at the start of the year, they have very little flexibility come summer. And that is a extremely dangerous risk, for one. For two, number 2 is players cost less during the summer. If we're going to get a second, bring in a third DP, I guess, a second DP for the year, and let's just say Locadia is staying the entire year, we're going to make that assumption. I'm just not going to get into that. But it's smarter to acquire that third DP in the summertime just from the cost perspective. And they're quote unquote half price at that point in time on your cap. So is it possible? I can make the argument it is. What I think Brad's really saying though is if you put on your GM hat, FCC fans, and you want domestic players, that is the key. If you want domestic players and you want the flexibility and you want good players, NICAMP's going to have to spend some GAM to get those players. That makes it very difficult to all of a sudden bring in these quality TAM players and things of that nature, which then makes it more difficult to buy down Kubo, who would be the second player we would need to buy down to get a third DP, and the money starts to dry up. Mm-hmm. That's the hard part to do. I can guarantee you the first thing people will say is, we got to trade Cruz. I'm an Alan Cruz fan. He had the second worst season. I'm an Alan Cruz fan. I didn't say you were.
Get him out.
He had the second worst season, behind Sim de Jong as far as just performance. I think he can come back. I'll just give you the reasons why I think he can come back. It was COVID. It was COVID. His girlfriend came up, she got pregnant. He got fat, slow, and was not motivated. I think he can rejuvenate himself. I believe in Alan Cruz, and he can turn it around. I won't argue that he should be traded though either. I'm just saying I think he'll be worth it eventually next year. So
great topic. So glad that you brought that up. Alan Cruz is the key to FC Cincinnati getting 2 new designated players this year. Okay, so if you're Gerard Nijkamp, Alan Cruz has quality, but we don't really understand where he belongs on the field. We don't know where he belonged last year, honestly, and we don't know where he belonged this year. Okay, under different coaching staffs, they all saw he was good, but they didn't. Well, we don't have the luxury right now of having a player like Alan Cruz. Like we didn't have the luxury of having a player like Sim de Jong. Different players, but the point still stands. Players without current positions. So if you want to talk about maybe a 2B, number 2B priority this year's, how can Gerard Nijkamp move Alan Cruz? That is my goal. If FC Cincinnati wants to win this season, they need to get rid of Alan Cruz. Because as it stands right now, you look at my fancy depth chart here. I'm going to crumple the page for our podcast listeners. We've got a guy who is a designated player right now, probably going to be your 3rd or 4th highest rated salary budget charge next season. Guy's without a position. Where's he going to play next year? Is he going to be the Tico and Conte, which we haven't seen for 2 seasons? Is he going to be right wing? Is he going to be left wing? Honestly, both his positions, he's all right, but he doesn't do well. I think that's the player. If Gerard Nijkamp wants to prove his chops and wants to put FC Cincinnati, we talk about like they set themselves so far like a couple years back because of their original roster build. If they want to actually catch up real quick, I think they need to move a guy like Alan Cruz and then maybe eat one of those U22 spots and get another DP. That's how I see it, because then you don't have to buy down Cruz. You can buy down Kubo. Okay? Cruz is gone, so then you can get 2 DPs that way. That is the only way, in my mind, FC Cincinnati gets 2 DPs this season. You've got to get rid of Cruz, and then you buy those guys down, and then that gives you some flexibility. You can get a winger. Maybe you get another player to play alongside Makoto. Maybe you get a center back. I don't know.
See, you just said something. Well, go finish your point, and then I want to counter back.
No, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Oh, you just said find a player that plays along Makoto. The player who's hindering us from a budget standpoint is Harris.
Yep.
If Harris wasn't there, we could try Cruz back there. It's the same budget charge, and Cruz is 24 years old. Who's got better ceiling? I understand Harris is a great player. Harris is the one who's holding up the roster. If Gerard could move him, then we would have the same. We could have the same discussion of getting the second DP without probably a problem. But you're saying trade Cruz because he's got value, and Harris doesn't have that value.
He's got value inside and outside the league. So I mean, you be getting a lot of allocation from him inside the league, and then you be getting a decent chunk of change back outside the league that you can turn into allocation.
Yeah. First of all, there's a question on YouTube, and they say if you buy down Cruz and Kubo, you've got to replace him with DP spots. 100% true. I'm just saying FC Cincinnati doesn't have, in my mind, the cap room to buy down both players this year. So they would have to get rid of one and keep the other, or keep one as a DP and buy down the other.
While bringing in the 10.
While bringing in the other DPs.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. So
there's just no room. There's still not the room because Vanderwerf and Medellin and Cruz are the anchors that bring this team down budget-wise.
Yes, and when you say there's no room, what you really also need to emphasize is, yes, there's room in the aspect of we could do it, but the team needs flexibility come the summertime, and you can't just discount it and go, let's spend the entire freaking budget at the start of the year and have no flexibility. That would be a death wish basically for Gerard. You need to have the flexibility come summertime. So I don't want people. I'm just saying if people want to go out and play with the numbers, there's a way to do it. But you got to be realistic and put on your GM hat. Injuries occur. What if we're getting into the playoff run and we're missing a winger and you need to make that move? You need that money available at that point in time. You can't just play luck of the draw out of the gate and hope for the best. I mean, you could, but we're not going to be, LAFC right out of the gate and have all the talent up front.
Yeah, Fly89 asks, would getting rid of Vanderwerf also have a similar effect on roster flexibility? I would actually say no, because if he gets a green card, if he stays as an international, yes, we've heard he's like 100% green card, and I'm not sure at this point in time FC Cincinnati can get an impactful center back this year like they can for just paying him, because I don't think they have enough allocation money to trade for 2 center backs that we would probably need domestic accounts for.
There is rumors of course, of Harris Medellin also getting a green card. So
yes. Well, I mean, yeah, we were assuming that in our
discussion.
Number. We were assuming TT, Vanderwerf, and Medellin getting green cards along with Lunt.
All right, let's get in some listener questions, unless you guys have anything else. From Nick Elder on Twitter, as far as adding domestic talent this offseason, what would you consider a success? Adding MLS veterans as bench depth, U.S. men's national team experience, or maybe some young improvement players that show a lot of promise, such as the guy at LAFC was in Louisville City.
Mark Anthony K.
Boom. Yes, thank you.
You got to look for those, but I mean, honestly, that's kind of like a 1 in 2,000 shot. Mark Anthony K.
Well, Hunter Freeman, get going, pal.
Yeah. I think that if you're talking about improving the domestic players, it's going to have to be trading through our allocation money. Golly, I don't know how it's going to happen because like we've got great guys who would be shooting for, but he gone. But we need to get players of his ilk who've got domestic status or a green card or something.
So someone like, and I know this was a couple years back, but Steven Betisher, right? I mean, somebody in that mode
Nick
right now
DeLeon.
might be helpful for 2 years. Nick DeLeon. Did you say that too? Yeah,
I just said that.
Yeah. So I'm
he was on
Nick's
he was on our expansion draft.
I know.
I think if I
Hey, Gerard,
remember
if you're
our
listening,
previous show.
hey Gerard, if you're listening,
Man,
Brad and I are available for
so much better
consultation.
I think there was also a story that was just run on MLSsoccer.com about Florian Velo. So if we just want to make Ken's blood pressure skyrocket even higher, we can go there. Nick,
you need to look for the Alex Moyol type players.
Yes,
you do.
So,
That's what we need to go for. Spend some allocation money, get those type of guys, and that's how you turn around a roster. AJ De La Garza was starting for Miami, I think, this year. We can go out and get players better than him.
Yeah.
For not that much allocation money.
I'm going to have to clay clock you a little bit here, pal. I'm excited to see if at all, if we can start convincing some MLS free agents to come to Cincinnati this year. Get some quality guys that, can step right in. Yeah, it might cost a chunk of change, but, utilizing your allocation money, but buying them down. I'm excited to see if that's possible. So
they should come here because they probably would start.
They probably will have a good chance to play. Garrett Griffith on Twitter says, what needs to happen in order for us to get a legitimate number 10? Do you believe we have all the roster flexibility needed to do so?
FC Cincinnati, by all reports, for a lot of reports, were supposedly ready to sign Gaston Pereira this past offseason. Okay? Don't laugh. What you laughing about over there, fella?
Try to see where you're going with this.
They have the money. They've got the backing to do that. That's all they need to get an attacking number 10. Get a Pozuelo, get something like that. You get an attacking player, you spend $5, $7, $8 million or more. We were talking about spending a lot more for Lacadia. That's what it's needed to get a number 10. I don't think it's going to be a domestic player at all. It's got to be an international player with the pedigree to do it. I am tired of chip on them shoulders players. Like, I am done with that crap. Get a proven guy in a European league, probably over there, or he's doing well in South America, who's scoring goals and putting up assists like left and right. That's what they need. They just need to identify him and go out and get him. I'm tired of these near misses and these guys like Siem De Jong who got a chip on their shoulder who, honestly, they were in Sydney last year. I don't want to hear that. That's the guys we need to go after. The guys who are doing well now, who are on the upward trajectory and not the revitalization trajectory. I'm tired of that crap. That's like a totally Cincinnati thing to do. Like, Mike Brown loves that crap. Stop. Get players in the upward swing. Hit on the number 1 draft pick for come on, Christ's sake. Come on.
I think Brad's point is we have the flexibility because we're all planning on getting a new DP 10. So it's there. We're capable of doing it. Garrett, was Garrett that asked that question?
Yes.
Yeah. Garrett, we're able to do that. And I think Brad's saying let's spend $5 million on transfer fees or whatever it takes to get a real number 10 and to unlock this offense.
Yeah, that's what you need.
I was really on the train of, okay, maybe we really don't need a number 10, but just seeing what happened with Amaya and Cruz and De Jong, just not able to just hit that next step. And then when we get into that final third, especially in the box, nobody's able to unlock everything. We're just trying to play Locadia into space or relying on Joe Jow to hit a cracker from 30 out. So Yeah,
Well, we didn't rely on that a lot.
well, Frankie too. So, yeah, I mean, we didn't score any goals. So I think if you're not coming into the season without somebody that it's proven to unlock those doors, I think we're really hurting. So, but budget wise, guys, roster budget wise, we think that we should be in a position to buy at least Kubo or cruise down to make that happen.
Plenty of room.
Well, Matt Rock asked about academy players earlier, and I want to give a shout out to Fly 89 for bringing up Uhui of Philadelphia's academy, and he's been doing very good things down in Philadelphia. Now he's here, moved to the FC Cincinnati academy, I think at the beginning of November. So that's great for FC Cincinnati, guys. Before we get into our final thoughts here, I do want to give a big shout out to our supporters. Thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to Tim Bronsel, Tom Rose, Matt Adamczyk, Mike Hudson, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Kathleen Francis, Matt Imholt, Matthew Long, Joe Coling, and Tara Mullins. Also, Riley Stephen Burke and Melissa Bingle. Thank you guys so much for your support of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. And to learn more on how you can support CST, head on over to cincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. All right, guys. I think this is a productive show. I think it just shows everybody here what has to happen still for us to get a budget or roster that's, competitive, to get into the playoffs, because we still have a long way to go. There's so many questions here. We got 10 spots open that need to be filled, and they need to be impact players. We can't go out and get 2-3 Zico Baileys and Saad Abdul Salams. I think that would really put us into a tough spot going into 2021, or having to rely on players of that caliber again. So, guys, going into this, probably won't talk to you again until December. I'm going to lead it off with Brad Weigel. Give me, your final thought on this show and what you hope to see over the next month or so.
Yeah, I'm looking, first of all, hat tip to the young Garys. We haven't seen goals like that in the history of this club. I mean, heck yes. Larry Sunderland, props, sir. So that is wonderful. This offseason, I want to see some creativity, Ken. I want to see some domestic moves made to solidify this team. You get those domestic players now. You trade the allocation money we have freed up now. Get domestic players. And then when we get those guys, next season, when we really want to jump off and compete, that's when we've got the freedom to do so. So I want to see Gerard trade, like I said, $1.3 to $1 million, whatever. That's a lot of GAM for a team third year in the league. Go out and trade that money, get impact players, do something with it, and then, it's a springboard. So there is room to move and room to grow and room to succeed in 2021. But he's got to make the right moves, and he's got to depart from just looking abroad.
Very good stuff tonight. Sorry I won't see you on Thanksgiving, pal.
Hey, man, just keep your son away from that Diet Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, that's a good story that we're not going to announce publicly. All right, Ken Hoetker, how you doing, buddy? Give us your final thoughts here now.
Yeah, I'm just going to correct Brad on one thing. Up the Foosers. The
Foosers. The
young Garys.
Foosers, the Garys. No,
I don't think either one of this is going to stick, guys.
I don't know.
I don't think. It's not it yet.
I don't have a nickname either. So I guess to stick with Brad's kind of theme of what I want to see is Gerard's got to bring in a big name. And it doesn't have to be a big name. He needs to bring in a big signing, another big signing like Locadia. And I say like Locadia as far as value perception that is creative.
Except one that contributes.
Yeah. Yes. I think Locadia is going to be fine. But
yeah,
in the end, I think he needs that. We need that. Again, we need to be validated as fans. So he needs to bring that in to show us that he can do it. He can bring in he can close the deal on a big signing. And then I'll struggle with sort of. I don't disagree that Brad, and as far as trading GAM, I hope we can get at least 2 decent TAM type players that can contribute, that are domestic. What it takes to get to there, Gerard will only know at this point in time. So that's kind of what I expect. And my final thought as far as the roster, it's going to be tight, guys. Again, I hate to say that. Jesus,
It's going to be very tight.
It's going to. It is
Vestal
going to be hard.
Virgin tight.
Unless we trade some big TAM cost player. So say it again, Brad.
No, don't say it again, Brad. I'll meet you, kick you off the show.
Watch History of the World Part 2.
Oh, I know that. I know. Oh, geez. Rome scene.
History of the World Part 2 or Part 1?
2. There's no Part 1. It's
Mel
History of
Brooks.
Part 2. Yes.
I love Mel Brooks movies.
Yes.
Every FC Cincinnati movie is like the first half of a Mel Brooks movie. Just a colossal
Mel Brooks
failure.
could never make a movie in today's day and age.
No, nor could The Office air today. All right, guys. Well, I guess my final thought this evening is I'm excited to see what this next 2 months holds and see what we look like coming in. What we look like coming into February, March of next year. I really want us to. I do want to shake up this roster a little bit. I wouldn't mind seeing a couple departures of the guys that we're bringing back. Like them as guys, but I think we're all in a rush to get things done. And if we can depart with some of these big contracts, especially a Dutch center back, I'd like to get rid of one of those guys to free up some space. So, Brad disagreeing with me. All right. Oh my God. So guys, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we hope to be back here more, at least in December, get 1 or 2 episodes to, cover some breaking news. We appreciate you guys tuning in. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, but please be safe this upcoming Thanksgiving week. Please make decisions to support you, your family, your loved ones. Unfortunately, I guess you could say, definitely unfortunately, somebody that's very closely associated with my daughter's school is, in a very, very tough place. So very, saddened, and she's, my daughter loves her, and hoping for the best there. So these things are real, happen, everything's present. So please be safe and take precautions this Thanksgiving. Try not to preach too much here, but, just let's get through it and enjoy some soccer here in the spring. So guys, love you. For Brad, for Ken, this is Bryan Weigel signing off, and hopefully talk to you guys in December. Have a good one.
Go Buckeyes.